Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rotation Podcast, a Minnesota Rocker production. I'm Ashley, aka MiDNiTE, as always, joined by Kingdom and IKON. And you guys, it was kind of tough to not toss up an emergency rotation over the weekend. I think we're all in different spots. I had a crazy weekend, so we weren't able to go live right away. But oh my gosh, guys, literally the single craziest day in Rostermania history that I can remember. Kingdom, I know IKON, you've been around for a long time too. Not only were the actual roster, movement was insane, or I guess what's kind of happened so far has been insane. But then some of the rumors that started coming out, it's almost like franchise mania is happening at the same time. So, just where do we start? Literally, where do we start? What has let's start with what's been confirmed. What has been a confirmed change in the Call of Duty League Rostermania space?
Well, I guess if we kind of attack this from the beginning, the very first thing were the squad wipes that happened literally while Champs was going on, like when Seattle got
ruthless.
Yeah, it was like we're still watching Champs, and there are people that have already lost their positions. So Seattle went ahead and made those moves, and then almost directly after that, like one of the first people to be dropped after that was Crimsix and Vivid. And sure, there was like Looney sent out a tweet that he was going to retire. He's going to look for a coaching spot in the CDL and stuff like that. But at that point in time, I wasn't quite sure like who the next moves would be. There was a part of me that thought that Atlanta, Toronto, OpTic, Minnesota, I figured Dallas would probably make a move when it came to Vivid, but I didn't think that they would drop two of their players. They literally dropped half their squad, and then everything else just unfolded from there. So it was like the first domino that fell was that Crimsix and Vivid were being dropped from Dallas. And at that point, it didn't make too much sense because every time I see these roster moves, it's like, well, who can they go ahead and replace these people with? Like, I think that maybe you could have a little bit of an upgrade when it comes to Vivid, even though he played really well down the stretch. And at that point, who are you really going to get that works better alongside Illy than Crim? So it just, at that point for me, that move just wasn't making a ton of sense. And then just when I guess you thought it couldn't get crazier, the news came out that Envoy was being dropped from OpTic. And basically for everything that I've thought for the last however many years that he's been on OpTic, it just always seemed like he's the next man up, right? Like he's the next scump face of that franchise. So I thought that maybe that squad would make a move. I thought maybe Formal would be the one to go just based off of how he really ended the Black Ops Cold War season. But for me, it was like, okay, well, if OpTic just goes ahead and just hires an analyst, maybe has somebody to help them with S&D and what they should be doing in rotations, that squad can probably do pretty well going into next year. Will they be able to beat Toronto or Atlanta's or Minnesota's or those squads of the world? Time would tell. I mean, their S&D was so far behind. That was the biggest thing. But I thought if they just touched up a few things there, they've shown throughout the entirety of Black Ops Cold War season, they were like a top 4, a top 5 squad basically throughout the entire year. So they were right there. So Envoy gets dropped, and then we get the next bit of news that Formal was retiring. So now Dallas is missing 2 players. OpTic is missing 2 players. Like, what the heck is going on? And literally, it wasn't even like 12 hours later, there was a breaking report that those 2 squads, whoever is left, might be merging. And at that point, I just kind of took a step back and I realized, okay, at this point in time, I have no idea what's going to be happening with Rostermania. So I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the show because I don't know what's going to be happening from here.
Absolutely mind-blowing. Like, I thought if OpTic's going to make a change, which I forget what I said on the last episode, but I was like pretty sure that they could. And they could also go let's stick together, coach it out. But I thought it'd be either Envoy or Formal, not both. That was pretty mind-blowing to me. Kingdom, what was your I thought of you when I saw the Dallas stuff. I knew right away with that, that's the first domino for Rostermania. I
Yeah.
shared it in a group chat. I was like the first domino, and they were like, "Is that bait?" And I was like, I don't think that's bait. That's too much bait right there. A little too much dip on the chip. But yeah, Kingdom, I'd love to know your thoughts on DAWs and just everything as a whole that we've seen on Rostermania so far.
OpTic was always going to make a change. I think when I was in the chat of the last show, I said unless they want to keep placing top 6, like they're going to make a change. And everybody's like, I think we're just nice because we like OpTic, we like the guys. We don't want to say, but Formal was always not going to be playing on that team next year, in my opinion. He didn't perform to that formal status that we've seen in the past, and Seth hasn't won since I think you were saying or before the show IKON like London of last year or something like that. Like that's not going to stay. You don't go a full year without winning a tournament and you're OpTic Gaming and you keep your whole roster, you know? And so I thought that if anything, it was going to be Dashy informal or Envoy informal, you know? And so I did not see Formal retiring, or now it's rumored that he's like just skipping a year or taking a year off. But I mean, Formal could go play Halo, like, right? You know, competitive Halo's coming back with Infinite. Like he could play that. Crimsix was the biggest surprise. It's like if the Lakers dropped LeBron or something. You know, like yeah, he's old. He's not as good as the people that are younger than him and all the guys coming up in the league, but he's LeBron James. You know, like Crimsix is Crimsix. You know, it's like dropping Kobe from the Lakers. I mean, it's just it was that was a weird. Crim has won a world championship on every roster he's been on, basically, if you consider Cole EG one team. And you know, I was listening to Nameless today, and it was actually just like because every person I watched said this was a surprise. Like Octane was like, no pro players knew this was coming. Like no one knew Crimsix was getting dropped, and it was just like a mind blown what the heck to everybody. And normally, Rostermania kicks off when the green wall gets involved and they start making trades. Otherwise, it's like Rostermania. It's like, yeah, there's some little changes going on, but nothing big until somebody from OpTic gets moved. But Crimsix actually was the one that kicked off Rostermania, in my opinion. Like once that change happened, you knew like, oh, okay, well, like I knew at that moment, IKON, I knew nothing. Like I didn't need to. The merger thing didn't surprise me. You know, it was kind of obvious the whole time. I was like, dang, Andy Miller and like that whole energy, like that team has to feel weird about like getting the Huntsman, and that brand actually became something, in my opinion. And then all of a sudden, OpTic came in, and Hex was like back in his OpTic form again. And I was like, it seems like NRG has nothing to do with this team, you know. And so at some point, I was like, it's probably going to be some kind of a breakup there. I don't know how it's going to go down. These owners all talk to each other, so they scheme. Like Nadeshot knew he was going to get in because Hector was going to be selling. You know, the OGLA spot was going to be sold. Like he knew all that was happening, and so I think whatever is going to go down, everybody knows behind the scenes. You know, is eUnited coming into the league? You know, because it looks like, you know, maybe the Legion are gone. You know, and so are they going to sell their spot? I saw a statistic today that said, and this is a statistic that was basically rumored, but that like CDL franchises spend about 300+% of their roster cost is from revenue. So like it actually costs more to have players than to even exist as an organization. And so for a lot of orgs, if you're not making content, you're not doing anything else like a Paris, like you're just literally
What
throwing
you
cash.
doing?
You're
What
just
you
throwing
doing?
you're just throwing cash at players. And so if eUnited comes around and is like, hey, we want to get back in. If Rise Nation comes around, they're like, hey, we want to get back in. If Cloud9 comes around, they're like, hey, we want to get into the league. Like you would consider selling your spot for 20 million, even maybe less than you got it for, you know, so you can recoup some of your losses. Otherwise, you're gonna have to get a team next year. You can't be in the league and not have players. It's not possible. And these orgs that are doing this, like, "Oh, we're just going to get a team, we're going to keep them all year, we're not going to make any trades, and we're just going to lose. Like, that, it seems like bad business to me. And so this last week has been absolutely bananas. I feel for Crim, but I agree with kind of what Nameless was saying when I was watching him earlier. Is this like, it's still Crimsix. He's gonna, like, and Octane said the same thing. Like, Crim, wherever he goes, he kind of can go to almost any franchise in the league, and wherever he goes, there are players that will want to play with him. Like everybody thinks about, oh, he's this and he's that, and blah. There are players. Like, I mean, Clayster was gonna leave NYSL and go to Dallas to play with Crimsix. Like, there are players that will still play with Crim wherever he lands. So this was strategic. This was an opportunity to get Scump. And if you're Hastro and Hector is going to bring his franchise to you, including the most storied player in our esport and the most followed, watched player in our esport, well then, sorry, Crimsix. Like, there's only one player you would replace Crimsix for, and that's Scump. And so, if I'm Hastro, it wasn't a hard decision, but it was a hard decision. Like, it's kind of like, you immediately are like, yes, I want Scumpy, but he's not going to play with Ian? Crap. You mean I got to drop Crim? Okay. Sorry, Crim. Like, that's just the way the conversation probably went. And I know that I think a lot of the speculation that's interesting to me is, like, if this does happen, like, what happens to Cinder? He tweeted out the Forrest Gump meme, like, bye. And so it's kind of like, what happens to Cinder? Does he become Rambo's sidekick? Because I don't think there's a world where you combine those teams, and Cinder, who hit nothing against him, but his team didn't win anything last year. Dallas took FaZe to map 9 and they placed 3rd, and they were basically 3rd all year. I don't think you take Rambo out of that situation. I think you keep him as the head coach. So I am interested in what the heck is going to happen. I can't wait to see more tweets, more stories. And to be honest, I'm waiting to hear from, like, the Minnesota ROKKR, and the Los Angeles Thieves, and some of these other teams that haven't said anything yet, the Florida Mutineers. But we know stuff is going to happen. Like, there are teams that we know are not going to stick. And I think Crim getting dropped opened the floodgates. A lot of owners, a lot of teams are going to be baiting it, going after him. I can't imagine what that salary is going to cost. The winningest player in Call of Duty esports history. If he had a sizable content life, he'd be more expensive than Scump. So I don't know. I am mind blown. I have been mind blown, and I haven't, like, keeping up is impossible because everything I watch, it's like by the time I go back to Twitter, something else happened that I didn't know about.
Yeah, it's been absolutely crazy to watch it unfold. In the first couple days of Rostermania, or at least, maybe the first few, just like a lot of baiting and people getting impressions, just kind of like, stirring up the conversation. But man, when Rostermania really got going, it's not even a roller coaster. I don't know what that is. It's like a plunge. No, it's like being shot into the freaking stratosphere. Like, it was absolutely insane to see that, witness all of that happen. I think there's going to be a lot more changes than we were even initially talking about. Like, I think, I can't remember IKON. My memory is so trash when I've had a busy week, but I think last week we were talking about, over under on how many teams are going to stay or how many teams are going to make significant changes. And I thought more teams would say. I thought OpTic would change, but I also thought it was possible that they would move. So the whole OpTic and Envy merger is well reported on, but unconfirmed. I'll say. I think very well reported on. Jacob Wolf is a legit, writer, journalist. It seems legit, but until we know, we don't really know. I'm not surprised. At first, I was surprised, obviously, like everybody, but I'm not that surprised, especially the aforementioned NRG, Andy Miller. What was their podcast called? The Duo.
The Duo, yeah.
The Duo. I don't think they're a duo anymore. I haven't seen a new episode in a while, and so you have to assume that there's divestment there, and that there's got to be some sort of ownership change. OpTic itself is a very, low-manned team, which I think in some ways has its benefits. But if you're trying to go all the way in CDL, that's tough. And so it does make sense that Hector would be looking for a competent, umbrella to be under. It surprised me a little bit because although Hastro and Hector go freaking way back. Like, Hastro was casting at the first event that Hector went to, I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm pretty positive that's
Hastro
how
used to
it was
play
working.
Competitive.
He used to play. Yeah, he literally, helped start Envy with Skylar and made and, was a player. Literally has gone through every, step that you can in a franchise. But I've seen them kind of as, frenemies, almost. They're great friends.
Yeah.
there's an epic rivalry going on there. You've got Castro talking about hoodie orgs and how winning is the most important. This, to me, I'm wondering what Castro's looking for in this move. There's got to be more to the story there. Does that make any sense? Like, am I like, not that Hastro's getting nothing? Scump is the king of Call of Duty. Hector, if it's a freaking dream for any of these franchises to work with Hector, obviously. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like there's a little bit of a turn on a dime from Hastro's side. If this is all true, this is technically unconfirmed or unannounced, but I'm just curious to know more. Like, how did this happen? Why did it happen? And I mean, let's talk about the possible iteration of that merged roster, because I have some questions. But like, what do you guys think Castro gets out of this, if this were true?
I mean, to me, I'll be honest. I liked the Dallas Empire brand. Was like Defend the Throne, the gold and black. Like that was one of the best new franchises within Call of Duty. Like honestly, it fit. Like because that was one of you had OpTic that kept their name, FaZe that kept their name, Envy changed their name, but still remained top 3. You know, like in terms of those kind of storied long-term franchises. And I think the Dallas Empire like there was a vibe to it, like that actually fit Dallas Empire. I don't, and honestly, to be again like the two sisters that play chess, and a lot of the content. Yeah, Envy's been making good content. Like it's been a while. Like Envy's making good content. Like I don't know if you've ever seen their views, but those girls both get millions on YouTube. Like
they're massive.
Yeah, just going to a park and playing chess, you know. And so like what Envy has done is kind of given themselves a brand, and then they brought in Rambo, who helped them to continue to be a top franchise in the CDL. And if I'm the CDL, this has got to be like the last change OpTic gets to make if this becomes the Dallas OpTic or something. Like they've been in 3 different cities. They've had 3 different names, OGLA, Chicago OpTic, and now Dallas OpTic or whatever they call it. Like it's a city franchise type deal, but they keep moving cities. And I just think like this has got to be the kind of the end of it, because also the Huntsman came and went. Dallas Empire came and went, if that actually happens. Like there's way too many storied franchises that are coming and going. And you may not lose their fan base, but you may lose some total viewership and fan base out of doing all those changes. What is Hastro getting out of it? Honestly, I don't know if there is I don't know how you turn down the potential to have Scump under your umbrella. Now, how much longer is he going to play? I don't know. You know, like
he's still really good. I think he
he was. I mean, on the OpTic podcast, everybody was like, Formal was like, I just didn't play consistent. I never rose to the occasion. I wasn't myself. Envoy was like, I played good, but at champs I played bad. That's where I knew he was getting dropped. Like, yeah, sorry, buddy. Like, there's no way that's passing the test when everybody's like, yeah, you know, you just had a bad champs. That's fine.
Hey, Lando in the chat. What's good?
Hey, what up, Lando? Envy does have a major interest in content, and that's what I was gonna say. Is like you're getting Scump. I mean, he's sitting there with 11,000 people watching him earlier today. Like you're getting when it comes to content.
Hector. You're getting Hector.
Well, yeah, well, see, that's the piece, and this is I don't call it a hot take. There is a chance that this is going to help Hector not have to be so involved in the Call of Duty team.
For sure.
He's doing his like other thing, his other business, and he's got all this other stuff going on. That is the piece that where he might finally be like, you know what? We had a non-winning season, and I was as involved as I always am. Maybe it's time for him to just take a step back and focus on continuing to do his own thing. Still be Hector, right? Most innovative, creative owner probably in the history of our esport, and still be Hector, but then he'll go up to the level where Hastro is, and those two will just dominate, you know, and they'll just come up with, I mean, you think about if they had a home event, like it would be ridiculous, you know, like, and so I think what Hastro gets out of it is he does get Hector, but the biggest commodity in this deal is Seth. I mean, he's the second winningest player of all time, and he's the only person that could ever catch Crimsix if that was possible, unless 10 years from now, Simp, I don't know how many trophies that dude's going to have. He's got more than 90% of players already in 3 years. So it's kind of ridiculous. But I think what Hastro gets is he gets Hector. but he gets Seth, and having Seth in that organization doing content and all that stuff that OpTic has always done. Now again, here's where they got to be careful. Andy Miller was upset, I think, because OpTic came in and then they were like, once they got rid of Huntsman, it was like, we're all OpTic again. Like, and that's all we're going to be is OpTic. There's going to be no NRG. We're not going to be putting it in the titles. We're not going to be putting it on the banners. Like, we're OpTic. And so it was kind of obvious that something had to give there. I mean, these are businessmen, right? It's not personal. The Hastro piece, giving up that Dallas Empire name that you had, and you're picking up the OpTic brand, which is one of the strongest brands in the history of Call of Duty. We lost 80,000 viewers when they left champs, and so I think this is a big opportunity for Hastro to propel his organization forward and not just win, but also win in content, with Seth. And let's say he retires and stays doing content, but he's under their umbrella. Like, that's forever. You have Seth, for marketing, for promotions, for all of that kind of stuff. So I think Scump was the biggest win, and you don't turn him down, just like Hastro didn't turn him down however many years ago when he came running to him like, hey, I can't play with Nate or whatever it was, and this is Stroh's chance to get him back, and to get Hector, like you said.
Hey, Tracy in the chat hit us with a $5 super chat. I really love this podcast. I appreciate that. Oh, sorry, it's Tasty. I'm so sorry. Appreciate that.
Let's go.
IKON, I'd love to know.
Tasty.
I'd love to know your thoughts, IKON.
Yeah, I'll be the one to say it. I don't like it. So
Yo!
I don't like the two of them merging. I'm just like you guys. I've been following these teams since before an OpTic house even existed. Right? I mean, it seems like we've been following these two, and it's always been before franchising. It's always been an OpTic versus Envy rivalry, and that's kind of like, oh, we got a major tournament finals, and it's OpTic versus Envy. Like, everybody's gonna be tuning into that and watching and seeing how it ends up. And then as soon as the CDL was formed, and when everything happened with Crim, it was like, okay, Crim's going to Dallas. Now you have, even though the brands are a bit different because it's not Envy anymore in the CDL, it's Dallas Empire, but you still have that sort of animosity between those two franchises. And it was the same thing. Like, in that CDL kickoff weekend, I could not wait to watch that very first matchup between OpTic and Dallas. It was like the one that I was looking forward to on that weekend. And then, I don't know, just now them joining forces, I don't know. It just reminds me, like, if anybody has like a home football team or whatever, it's like, so I live in Cleveland, so it'd be like the Browns and the Steelers combining, and it's like, what do you mean? Like, these two squads are coming together, and we still have to somehow root for one of these. Like, I don't know. For me, it just doesn't make sense. I get it. I get that if you're Hastro, even though, again, Ashley, like you mentioned earlier, like, this guy pretty much started this brand from the ground floor up. Now you're just going to say, okay, you know what? I know, OpTic, you've been my biggest rival for 15 years, but come on over, we'll merge, and then I'll just use your brand in the CDL, and now we'll just go by Dallas OpTic, and Empire that I built or whatever just won't really have a foundation anymore. It just, I don't know. I mean, I get it. I understand why they would do it. It seems like Hector was looking for another franchise to maybe merge with, and that one makes sense because they're both there in Dallas. But the optics of it, it's just weird. I mean, just to think that, whatever side you've been on, if you've been an Envy fan for a decade, now you have to root for OpTic when, like, they've been your arch nemesis, and kind of the same thing back and forth. So I don't know. That's my take. I guess it's not real analytical based on, what's happening behind the scene. But for me, it just feels odd.
Yeah, it definitely feels weird, especially from like a fan perspective. I'm quite worried that the dilution of these two fan bases into one, or I guess like the green takeover. I mean, to me, it was like, I guess like I was looking like very much at the, like, what is Hastro getting out of this? If he's all about like, let's win, hoodie org, content second, whatever. Like, he's always talking shit about teams that focus content, and now you're gonna, allegedly merge with the biggest content org. It is the smart thing to do, but it just doesn't match with everything he's been saying for a decade, in my opinion. But it is an extremely intelligent move.
Yeah.
I think, to me, it is. I mean, it may be like, bro, they got booed in Dallas. Like, the Dallas Empire got booed coming on stage And I get it. It's a lot of OpTic fans in the crowd. There's the Crimsix history. That's probably why they're getting booed. But like, that's got to make you say, okay,
Yeah.
how do we get fans? And this is how you get fans. This is how you do it. And I mean, this is just me spitballing. It is weird. Like I said, I feel like there is a frenemies vibe. Poor Chris in the chat says Envy fans pretty mad about the merger, but OpTic fans gassed. Yeah, I mean that makes sense because it's what's gonna help solidify OpTic. I think the infrastructure that Envy can offer as a parent org and everything that they've got going on, they have super competent people and a large staff working for that team. So I think it's a win-win-win, but it is like from a fan perspective, and I would wonder like if this is happening, what's the CDL's? Yeah, it's literally like franchise mania. So if you look at the OGLA, the LA Thieves, the Chicago OpTic, Chicago Husband, to Chicago OpTic, to Dallas OpTic. Now, don't get me wrong, OpTic should be in the CDL forever. I don't care what the frick city they play for.
Right.
But I just am so curious about the business aspect of it. I find it really, really interesting. Let's talk about the roster aspect of it, though. If this is a real roster, this is like the biggest rumored roster right now, so we've got to talk about it. You got Illy, you got Shotzi, you got Scumpy. Oh my god, you got all the E's. And then you got Dashy, bro. That roster on paper is nasty. That's a nasty roster. But maybe I'm just upset about the whole thing, but who's the IGL? Who's the main AR? Is Rambo going to be able to coach these guys together? I'm interested to see if it's possible, but I'd love to know, what's your guys' take on the roster? You're like, oh, that's nasty, new phase, contender versus them? Or is it, I'm kind of skeptical on who's running that squad?
Yeah, so I'll take this one because when it comes to, deciphering what's going on with these rosters, this kind of what I study, what I like, what I enjoy. So first of all, I think when it comes to the overall makeup, I think in terms of position wise, I think they pretty much have all the bases covered. The only thing that they might not have covered, which you touched on, is who is going to end up being that Arcides type IGL, right? Do they really have any of those in those four guys? Because that's not something that Scump has really been known to be throughout his career, even though as of late, for example, in S&D last year, he was probably their most consistent player. That's also not what Shotzi does, and that's not what Dashy does either. So I think, and this is where if you're looking at this roster as a whole, if you're starting to think about who could potentially make the play calls and who could potentially be this team's scapegoat if things don't go well, it's probably going to be Illy. Right? Because in my mind, you have Shotzi, which I think is a perfect, a second SMG next to Scump, because he really hasn't had that SMG duo. Sure, you can call Envoy an SMG duo, but Envoy does not play the same game as a Hydra, as an Abizi, as a Kleenex, as those type of players, right? They don't really, or a Standy. He's never really been that super aggressive entry. He's always trying to hit flanks and make crafty plays. And because of that, in 5v5s, like in MW, where he had what might have been his best year, he was able to get away with that. It's the same thing with Hook and how Hook played back in MW. If it's 5v5, there's more people on the map, so you can get you can make those kind of rogue hero plays, but in 4v4, you really can't do that. And I think what ended up happening is Envoy still had that play style. He found himself out of position. And that's when things, especially in S&D, really started to go by the wayside for OpTic. So I think Shotzi and Scump next to each other, I think that's what he's been missing, right? You need to find a way to get a Shotzi, to get an Abizi, to get a Kleenex, to get a player like that plays super fast as an SMG and really opens up the map for other SMGs and other players rather than just trying to hit rogue plays and flanks and stuff like that. It just didn't seem like that was going to be possible. So, for example, when Envoy was kind of the first one from that OpTic squad to make a move, my thought process was, well, they're only going to get rid of Envoy if they can get one of those other four players, right? Is Abizi leaving Simp? The rumors out there were that Kleenex could be the one to move Toronto. I didn't know what was going on with Standy, and there's no way that they were going to get Shotzi, right? I mean, those are two rival brands. There's no way Shotzi's going to go to OpTic, and that's what ended up happening. So I think maybe if that merger didn't happen, I don't think that they break up. I think maybe Formal still retires. He said in his twit longer that he might have been a bit over it and the grind and practicing 8 hours a day and all that comes with it. So I think the duo next to Scump with Shotzi is a perfect fit. I think it'll allow him to play probably as long as he wants to play, because we saw even last year that there's really not much in terms of his performance that's been going down over the last couple of years. I mean, he's been playing great. So for me, Dashy's gunny is so good that when it comes to just overall gun skill and what he does with an AR in his hands, he has to be the main AR. He really hasn't had that opportunity in the last couple of years. He's always kind of been a flex, kind of like what Arcides was doing, right? Arcides went to the Atlanta FaZe so that he would have an opportunity to be that main AR, that main guy. And that's kind of what I see with Dashy. So give him the opportunity to be the main AR, and I think they will be 1,000% fine in that regards. For me, it's always been, let's see what Illy does. Because when Illy was on an AR, things this year for Dallas went really well. At the beginning of the year, when Hook was there, they performed really well. In the middle, when he tried to be Shotzi's duo at SMG, didn't quite go so well when Fellow was there. Then at the end of the year, when they got Vivid and he went back to AR, they started playing really well again. So for me, personally, when it comes to Illy, I think as long as, and this is another big part of it, we have no idea what the meta is going to be like next year. So as long as you have your two SMGs and Scump and Shotzi and you have your two ARs, I think that squad can be fine. Of course, they have a long past time. I mean, Dashy and Shotzi and Illy have been playing S&D tournaments for years now. So they definitely have the chemistry. They've been playing together. For me, it's just, what's the meta going to be like? And can Illy kind of get over having to be that scapegoat? And then if something goes wrong, I just hope that they can stick together and it doesn't start into, oh, it's his fault or it's Illy's fault or whatever. But as long as all goes well, they can kind of form an in-game leadership with Illy and maybe Scump at times. I think they'll be okay.
I don't know, in my opinion, why everybody thinks this is the roster, and why it's sticking. Like, why Illy still isn't a threat to be dropped. Like, if he was on a 1+1, he can go somewhere. Put a Clayster on there or something. Like, I think this team is missing an in-game leader. It's missing a good, solid hype man. These are all Dashy, Shotzi, and Scump are these type of methodical, slay people out type of players that need to focus on their gameplay. Like, Scump is one of the best pre-aimers in Call of Duty history, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, he comes around corners with his gun up, and you watch him when he gets on streaks, it's because he's methodical about his gameplay. That's why he's good in search. And so I think that's what you're missing. I think if I'm Illy, you're not leaving the league. So you can go play with Crim. I mean, if you want to. Like, I don't know where the beef with Crim was, but I think more so Crim couldn't play with Seth if they knew that was happening. And so they gave Crim as quick a chance as possible to find another team. You need to find an IGL. You think about Celium, Abizi, and Simp. They would not place as high. I mean, we've seen what happens when they don't have a good in-game leader, and so I think Arcides was needed. They probably would have won champs last year, and Simp would have been like 3 times in a row, first 3 years in the league with a chip, with champs rings. And so I think this roster, to me, is, I think a lot of people are thinking, stack the talent, it's the best roster, it's amazing, they're going to compete with FaZe. I mean, if we're honest, like, if I was betting on who would win a matchup between those two teams, I would say FaZe. I mean, they not only have a year of playing together, but they know what they need to do. After Major 5, they switched it up. They had a conversation. They keep talking about it. They got on the same page. And a FaZe on the same page, it's chalked. And so I think this game is going to matter and how it plays. Illy would be great as an in-game leader for search, but for the rest of the game modes, they need a solid IGL that is going to be the leader of the team that everybody refers to. When Simp is winning matches, but then refers to Alec and his leadership. When Attach wins a match and refers to Major Maniac or someone else. You know, like it was obvious that a lot of our success came from when we let that guy tell us what to do. Some new players are some of the best in-game leaders that we have in the league. And so I would say if that team wants to win, if they actually want to win a tournament and not just, I mean, they didn't even go to a grand finals this year, so like OpTic didn't. If they want to actually get to a grand finals and then maybe win, they have to have a solid in-game leader, and that's what is still missing. And so, I mean, if I'm honest, I don't think Illy sticks if this is the roster. If Shotzi and Scump are on the same team with Dashy, all I'm missing there is like every team that's good needs a good EQ and a good IQ. Like you need to be able to play the game and know the game, but you also have to be emotionally intelligent in the rough times. And
Yeah,
that
I feel
would
like
be
Scump
missing
is
from
that,
this team.
right?
He plays that way individually, in my opinion.
True. Yeah,
He has it. Scump has the emotional fortitude to play well like he did when the way he left champs was Scump like. You know, like I'm gonna just go on a streak and try to keep the, you know, like that he has the intelligence to do that and the emotions to not get caught up in the fact that we're about to lose champs and be done. Like he can still play in the midst of that, but he can't get Dashy to do that while he's playing, and he shouldn't.
Yeah.
He's Seth. Like he like in my opinion, they need a leader to come in that's gonna let those three guys. And if that happens, I mean, yeah, they'll compete with FaZe. They'll compete with all of the top teams. Like, and that's why I think Clayster got caught up in some, and he had his own mental health challenges, and his emotional intelligence kind of slipped. But it was because his team wasn't listening to him, and he didn't have another veteran. I mean, that's the real deal with Clayster. Like, he needed someone else to look at that had been there, that had won champs, and that knew this is the time to do this, this is the time to do that. And he didn't want to be the dad all the time. You need, I hate to say this, you need a dad and a mom on the team. You know, it's like, and so
you need life is about balance for sure.
Yeah. So that's my, I mean, I just think like this is a good roster, but I think Illy he will be a scapegoat. And
yeah, that's a tough
we know
spot
it's
to be
the
in.
OpTic way. You know, someone's got to be blamed. They're
Yeah.
coming for you. You know, and that is a tough spot.
I like the point that poor Chris made in the chat, and I feel like if I agree with this 1,000%, that if they were replacing Illy, then that's who they would have dropped, right? Because if you think about it, if you really need like that true main AR that's going to go ahead and point people in the right direction and be that, you know, make the shot calls and whatever, then drop Illy and keep Crim. And now all of a sudden you have Crim, you have Dashy, you have Shotzi, you have Scump, you have the prototypical 4 roles that a squad needs. And that's not how they saw it. So I feel like they thought that they were better off with taking the 2, Shotzi and Illy, taking the other 2 from OpTic, Scump and Dashy, and combining them that way. And a lot of that, I think, probably has to deal with the fact that, again, these guys were 17 years old before they could even go pro running the S&D scene. I mean, they have that chemistry. They just really haven't.
Nasty S&D squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have the chemistry. They just haven't had the chance to show it yet at this level, and I think that's what they're giving them here.
I think here's something that these guys all have in common. Clayster, Crimsix, Arcides, Formal. We're all in-game leaders on either Dallas or OpTic in the last 2 years. None of those guys are on those teams anymore, allegedly. Right. So who's gonna be that guy? Who is that guy, pal? Who is that guy? Like, who's gonna be that person that comes in? One thing that I think is super worth noting, and it kind of like, and first of all, I think Sender's a great coach. I think, you know, I wasn't on the team listening to him coach, but like, by all accounts, hearing him talk about the team and everything they had going on, I don't know if the team was listening to him or not. I have no idea. You can't not listen to Rambo. And if they're lacking, if Illy's the guy, I agree that he'll be scapegoated, which is a really hard place to be. A lot of pressure. I mean, the whole team will be under a lot of pressure, really, because they're nasty. But if there is going to be a team that has a kind of a lack of a super vocal leader, like your Crims, your Claysters, your Arcides, your Formals even, at times, like Rambo's the person you want coaching that team. The difference between Dallas and OpTic in the last, year and a half or whenever Rambo came on, Dallas played so fundamentally sound that even when they were getting outslayed, they could still win. And if that same type of, suave went to OpTic, like that team could be really nasty. But I'm not sure, and I feel like TP had a similar struggle with OpTic previously. Like the vibe was that they weren't listening to him. At least that's what I got from like interviews that he did. He seemed frustrated. So I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting if this is true. I do think if they were going to let Illy go, we would know that by now. But who knows? Rostermania is crazy. We don't know anything. We definitely didn't think this was happening a week ago. So who knows what's going to happen? Geez, dude. Yeah, I mean, an assistant coach for Sender would be really cool. But if I'm Sender, I'm wanting to be a head coach somewhere. I don't know. I mean, unless he's really like attached to the OpTic guys, the OpTic way, which is very easy to do.
Probably
like
is,
it's a great team to be a part of. I know from experience. Like it's amazing, but does he want to be like, fiddle to Rambo? Who knows? Or second fiddle, I guess. Yo, imagine them playing fiddle on main stage between maps, like trying to hype the guys up. That's what you need. Anyway. So we talked a ton about the whole possible Envy OpTic merger that was reported on last week. Super mind-blowing day of Rostermania. You had Crim. I mean, formal retiring really threw me for a loop. I wouldn't have been surprised if he wasn't on OpTic anymore, but it really did surprise me that he full-on retired and didn't really take more time. But it makes sense. I think he's going to kill it with content for sure.
Same.
For sure. Let's talk some other, changes, rumors. What's the tea that we're seeing and hearing in the community? We do have like a spreadsheet. I don't know if we've like filled it out
IKON
fully.
filled it out. We can,
IKON.
I think we should just judge IKON.
Yeah, let's judge IKON. So we, you know how we did like, match predictions all season long for CDL. No, I'm not going to say that I won those predictions with a clutch stage 5 being a homer or anything. But so we have something a little similar here where we're, kind of trying to predict what the rosters will be. I unfortunately did not fill it out yet, but I kind of have some thoughts. Here's IKON's predictions of what is going to happen with these teams. Now, I think I'm trying to tell what is confirmed here. Are these? None of these are confirmed, right?
Well,
not a whole lot.
The top, like all the way through, you can see where he made changes. Where there's no changes, that's because those teams haven't mentioned anything. Like Toronto, Minnesota. He changed.
Oh, got
LA,
it. So those aren't even your predictions. These aren't your predictions.
He didn't move anybody off of those teams. Yeah, some of them he's moved, like the LA Thieves. He made changes, even though nothing's been mentioned yet. But he put Octane on.
Sorry, I'm a little confused. So you're predicting FaZe, Ultra, and ROKKR stick.
Yes.
Okay, now I get it. Oh, I see. So the things in bold are for sure. It's hard for me. I'm looking at like an extra a little preview here. I can't really tell what's bold all the way. There. Oh, I see. Wait, Sibs on subliners?
That's what he's
a rumor.
Saying.
That's what.
Yeah, bold
okay,
is
I'm
IKON.
Sorry.
Yeah,
bro, I'm ruining the show by not understanding how to read the spreadsheet. It's my bad for not really being able to look at it until the show. So the bold is what you're predicting. The non-bold is what's just the way it is. Yo, what? You think a new orgs? Yeah, sorry, I'll let you break it down. Look at where you put Crim.
Oh.
So let's go ahead. Let's kind of take a peek at this in terms of who I really think is going to be with a certain squad. And then I feel like there are a couple dominoes to fall. And as soon as those dominoes fall, I feel like the rest will kind of take care of itself. So, for example, when you're looking at LA Thieves, I feel like it's going to be Octane. I feel like, I mean, literally when he made his video about what happened in Seattle, he was wearing an LA Thieves shirt. Just seems like that's the most likely place for him. And there was a tweet from Slasher that, like the Players Tribune KD thing, my next chapter type deal. That was just like an hour ago about maybe he's potentially moving on somewhere. So for me, it feels like Kenny and Octane at LA Thieves are pretty much a lock, at least in my mind. If something happens and it throws it out the window, I mean, that's just the way that Rostermania has gone this year. For me, I think that they would be crazy to get rid of Draza because he's played so well throughout Black Ops Cold War. He was good in MW. I think the only thing they're missing is that SMG, right? That fast-paced entry SMG. So they have one opening there. I think when it comes to NYSL, for example, I think if Hydra stays and if Clayster is there, the next domino for them is who are they going to pair up as an SMG beside Hydra? That's like the piece that they're missing. And then if you look at Florida, right, these are like the three teams that I'm looking at that are right in the middle. When it comes to Paris or whoever is going to take place of Paris, and when it comes to London and Seattle and LAG, like I feel like Envoy's not going to go to one of those squads, right? He's going to try to make a difference at one of those next tier squads. So it's either LA Thieves be the missing piece there, it's NYSL be a partnered up next to Hydra, or it's going to be Florida, because when it comes to Florida, they have Skies, they have Awakening. There were some rumors that maybe Awakening would go somewhere else, but if Neptune is there, you plug Envoy into that bunch, that's a pretty big potential. So for me, I feel like a lot of these squads maybe aren't waiting to see what Envoy does, but I think a lot of it is determined by what he does. Because when you look at the SMGs that are going to be out there, you have Hook, where you don't really know which Hook you're going to get next year. You have Asim. I think if you're NYSL, you probably take Envoy over Asim, which I'm sure we can debate that, because Asim he was absolutely phenomenal last year for NYSL. You have Vivid, who's also probably going to get a spot. So when I filled these out, I feel like it's going to be where Envoy wants to go. And it just seems like, for me, Envoy's probably going to be matched up beside Hydra. I think if that's the case, he doesn't have to be that super aggressive SMG. That's not quite his play style, even though he did try to do those hero plays and hit the flanks and stuff like that. A lot of times it got him in trouble. So he would be paired up next to Hydra. He wouldn't necessarily have to make those plays. If those two are there, Clay is also probably going to go there, because there's not many other options out there. Like, is he going to go to a new org somewhere and try to start all over again? No, if you could have those two, then that's probably it. The only thing that they would be missing is a fourth. Now, a big comment that's been out there, and I've seen it on the subreddit a lot, is, well, does Crim and Clay just team up, and does that NYSL group end up forming Crim, Clay, Asim, or not Asim, Hydra, and Envoy? So those four. And for me, I think if you have a 2AR, 2 SMG meta, I think that would work pretty well. But if for some reason in Vanguard you have a 3 SMG meta, there's no way that Clay or Crim can run an SMG. There's no way that they can compete with Celium running an SMG, with Cammy running an SMG, right? Like, they're not that type of player. So for me, maybe they try to get an actual traditional flex that's a little bit more versatile. And whether that's Sib, whether that's Awakening, whether that's somebody else, it seems like the most logical play. The other place I could see Envoy going is, like I talked about earlier, is LA Thieves. But again, Draza is not that prototypical, really fast entry SMG. So if he goes there, he's going to have to try to make the same plays that he was trying to make on OpTic. And I'm not sure it works out so well. So for me, you can talk about Paris or London, although it seems like London's squad is pretty set. You can talk about LAG or Seattle or whatever, but I'm really interested in the storylines that are revolving around those middle three teams, and I think it all comes down to wherever Envoy decides he wants to go.
It's going to be absolutely nutty. I think that is the next big domino that I guess I can theorize. Yo, probably an unpopular opinion, but Clay and Crim worked at Dallas because it was 5v5. When it is 4v4, and if you do have a faster Call of Duty or a meta that is close to 3 subs or mostly 3 subs, that's not a spot you want to be in. I do think that they could work. I mean, it's literally like having 2 IGLs on your team. So I think they do work together well. But in terms of like the play style that they each have, it's kind of too similar for me to feel awesome about them going into 4v4 together. But they did it before on Complexity, so what do I know? Kingdom, what are you thinking? What do you think of, kind of IKON's chart here? Big shouts, by the way, to producer Shannon for putting this spreadsheet together. I'm going to put my predictions in for net. Well, I'm gonna fill them in. I might start tweeting out my predictions. With the no intel that I know, absolutely. Kingdom, I'd love to know your thoughts.
He's going
I
after
think,
Crimsix right away.
of course. I think, I mean, why wouldn't it be like attached Standy Priesta and Crim? You know, like, I think that there's only maybe one team sticking, and I think it's FaZe. I think even Toronto, you can only lose so many times before you just are tired of losing together. Like, we've seen teams that just, the only team that lost together repeatedly at champs was OpTic Gaming until they won together. Like, they just were so resilient. And I think for Ultra, they might try to make a change because they have a lot of tradable assets. Like, you know, they might try, I don't know what change you make because they were such an anomaly of a team. It's like you couldn't really pinpoint who was there. I mean, Insight is freaking ridiculous. Like, that guy, man, astronomical, just rookie year was like, I didn't think Standy would have anybody to compete with him in terms of rookie of the year, but Insight was freaking frying. Like, that guy is, you know, one of the top 5 KDs in the league all year long. And I just, like, I don't know though if Toronto will stick. And then Crimsix being by himself, I just don't see that happening because there's 3 other players that are already on this board that are going to play with him. You know, like, it's Crim. I just don't see a world where, I mean, I didn't see a world where Karma didn't play in champs a few years ago, but I mean, anything's possible. But I think Crimsix, Clayster, Envoy, and Hydra is disgusting, and they would compete with Atlanta FaZe. The sound of that roster scares me because Envoy would be the IGL. Like, that's the scary part, is that Crim and Clay and Hydra could do whatever they wanted on the map while Envoy was being an IGL. And Envoy as an entry person, I mean, but technically that's Hydra. So Envoy could play a little, because I think the challenge at OpTic with Envoy and Seth was that they kind of both wanted to do the same thing. And you just can't have that. You're going to do what Scump wants to do. You're going to, you know, and Envoy, his gameplay kind of suffered. Once 5v5 went away, you know, and it was like 4v4, you can't have Envoy and Scump doing the same thing. So one of them's got to suffer. One of them's got to, you know, go negative sometimes and all that kind of stuff. And Envoy took that role on. I think with this, with the ability of Hydra and with him learning more and more and more, like, how to communicate, in terms of that in-game communication, like, that just sounds like a scary roster. Now, could Clayster pick up an SMG? Probably not, but would they still beat probably 6 teams in the league? Yeah, with Clayster having an SMG. Even looking at these rosters right here, that LA Gorillas team, I would call them relegated to not making champs from day one. Like, it's unfortunate to say that, but that's one of those weird rosters that just doesn't look like it has a lot of potential. I like that Florida Mutineers team you put together, because I think Hook needs a location where he can just play Call of Duty and have fun with other people that are good at the game. I don't know who does in-game leading, but Neptune got a lot better this year. I don't know who does in-game leading in there. I I I don't know if you sell off Wake. I honestly don't know what's going to happen with that team. I think you put Slasher in a good position because he's a question mark, and he's a way bigger question mark than Crimsix, who plays top 3 at champs and almost got into the final match. You know, like, took Ultra to map 5. Like, I think though there's a lot of questions around Slasher. When you're thinking about playing with him, what if there's a COVID spike and we go back to online? Is Slasher now going to not play anymore? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a reality around that. Are the league matches going to still be online? Well, then you're not picking up Slasher. You know, like, that's an L. You know, because not only does he play worse, his mood and his attitude is worse. Again, that's that EQ thing that messes with him. I like hearing Scump say on the OpTic podcast, like, online is online. You know, it's not the best, it's not what we like, but everybody's doing it. You know, so it's like, you can't complain too much. LA Thieves, another team that could go after Crim, is Nadeshot. He recruited Crim before. He helped when OpTic recruited Crim. Nadeshot could go after Crim. Like, they just want to win. That team is a stack the talent team. They are like, let's stack the talent. Let's get all the talent we can. And they may go after Crim because Octane may be suited by one of these other teams. Maybe, you know, Clayster wants Octane. Maybe the Minnesota ROKKR want Octane. You know, like, or not. Yeah, I mean, maybe they want Clayster. You know, put Clayster, Standy, Attach, and Priest would be ridiculous. And so it's I just think there's so many opportunities. The teams I like that you put together. I like that you kept Toronto and FaZe the same. I do like the LA Thieves team. I think that's a doable roster. I just think with the way that these guys want to play, they're gonna let Kenny and Octane choose who they want to play with. And I think if you put Kenny and Octane together, there's a lot of talent that I'm looking at on this board that would play with those two guys. And so maybe Envoy goes there. Who knows? I think I couldn't have done this, which is why I didn't fill mine out because there's just too many possibilities. I would love to see, to be honest with you guys, it's sad that Mr. Apathy isn't on here. I would love to see, but it is good to see Zenny back. I would love to see Gunless land on a team where he makes sense. And I don't know what that looks like, but I'd love to see Gunless get on a team where we get to see Gunless play at his ability, and it makes a difference to where his team wins because of it. But I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if Octane goes to LA Thieves and then recruits Gunless because they used to play together. But I know he likes Pristini. I know he likes Alec, who's already taken. So maybe he does stick with Pristini. The other person I'd love to see get on a winning roster is Asim. I feel like Asim has had so many chances. He's been in so many good. He reminds me of Apathy. Like he's gonna have that kind of career where he wins a couple chips, maybe even gets a champs under his belt. Apathy was able to do that, and so. But again, it's like, but is he gonna always be on those teams that are like almost there? He was on the New York Subliners. They were like one of the best teams in the league for a whole major, and then all of a sudden, Clayster's upset and it was kind of chalked. They just didn't have a lot of hope for the rest of the season. And so I'd love to see Asim land somewhere other than like this LA Gorillas roster. But where is that? Maybe the Thieves want him. I don't see the ROKKR recruiting him. And I like your Surge team because I think that's the kind of decision they'll make. They'll go cheap and they'll go searching for new talent.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting to see what Surge kind of does from here. I just feel bad for them at this point. I want to see them like, let's pop something off. They're making a change at coaching. They squad wiped. I mean, same with Gorillas. They double squad wiped. They squad wiped the main roster. They squad wiped the academy team. Didn't even keep Money Cheen. Like it was kind of nutty to just see the full reset. But I mean, I guess if you're gonna do it, now is as good a Rostermania as any to kind of try to do that just a holistic reset of like, all right, we'll try again. Maybe first of all, I love Rostermania. I love the roster speculation, but I just like, we got 2 new orgs on this prediction sheet. Like, what? Anything's possible as we've seen. The possibility of Cloud9 entering, they've been flirting quite a bit with Havoc on Twitter. I mean, so blatantly, Call of Duty leagues even replying and baiting. That perspective, like how they're like, how are they going to enter? Are they going to enter? Would they actually pick up Havoc? Like, why is that your guy? Because he was 4 years ago. Like, I'm interested to see, why these decisions are being made, how they're able to happen. Where would this new spot be? Would it be Paris? If this OpTic Chicago thing is true, is then a different org going to take a different team, or are they going to stay with Chicago? Bro, they've fumbled the bag. They baited and they played themselves yesterday so hard. Yep. It was hard to watch. I felt bad. Do you see the video reveal for their Halo team? It was a video. So they baited so hard about Call of Duty, saying like Rebirth. Like, okay, do you guys did MiDNiTE ever have a Halo team? I don't think they did, but I could be mistaken.
I don't know.
I think they might have. Actually,
they might have. Okay.
I think they did.
Because they were calling it. I tried to Google if they had a Halo team, but I couldn't find it before yesterday. But yeah, they were like saying Rebirth and stuff, and then showing a bunch of the Call of Duty team winning. And they were like,
it was bad.
Their commands in they had to have known that was going to fall flat. I feel bad, honestly, because they try to make a hype moment, and that just led to such an avalanche of disappointment. I genuinely feel bad for their Halo team. But anyway, that's besides the point. Is United going to come back? I hope, and I hope they have a way cooler reveal than what the Halo team was. I hope they have a genuine rebirth and they're able to show a bunch of COD clips and it be true. But yeah, I mean, yeah, who else is gonna enter the space? Like, who, like, is your like you
Rise has
mentioned
been
Rise
talking about it.
Nation? That'd be kind of
Yep.
cool. I mean, that'd be kind of cool. I'd be interested to see who's gonna come into the space.
I don't know. I think if you look at the possibilities that are out there, I'm just not sure that a squad like E United, even though I have heard in certain spots that maybe E United does have the bankroll, I don't know if Rise Nation can put up the type of money that it takes to get into the CDL, which is why you have these squads getting into Halo. That's why when I honestly I don't know who takes that open Dallas or that open OpTic spot. I think when it comes to Paris, I think the only org out there that at least has shown a little bit of interest that could do that would be Cloud9, which is why I just slotted them in there. And then if you're Crim, you're not going to go. At least I personally don't see Crim going to play for LAG or London or one of the teams that finished the worst in the league. I feel like, well, I'll just go ahead and start my new thing. And by the way, I have this massive franchise in Cloud9 to do it with. Like if there's an org out there that at least has shown a little bit of interest that could come in and make waves in the CDL, I feel like it would be Cloud9, and who better to do it with than Crimsix? I mean, so I don't know. If you think about like the spots that are open that he could potentially go to, I guess he could go to New York, but if it's Clay and Crim there and it's a 3SMG meta, they're chalked. I mean, they're not going to compete with Celium in the Atlanta phase and Cammy in Toronto. It's not going to happen. They're not going to compete with Priesta and the Minnesota ROKKR. They don't have that talent at that position. When you look at LA Thieves, I'm pretty set that Octane goes there. I don't see Crim ending up there. I think it's going to be Octane. He's a better player than Crim. You can talk about all you want. I think Octane is one of the best main ARs in the league. And when it comes to Florida, Florida is Skies. Skies is Florida. So the only places that are left is to go somewhere new. So I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but that's just the way that I kind of look at it, I guess.
I'll just say that of the teams we mentioned, I know for sure that at least one of them, I'll say, has been trying to raise capital for a while to get into the league. So there is there's a lot of opportunity for franchises that, I mean, E United won a champs. You know, like they're a storied franchise in Call of Duty because of that. You know, they gave us Simp. You know, like that org is important to all of us. And they like that team was so easy to love, like that roster with Clayster and Arcides and Simp and Abizi. Like that was such an easy roster to just be fans of. Whenever OpTic was out of a tournament, all of their fans just shifted. That was one of the first years where you noticed, like, wow, viewership didn't go down as much. You know, it was like because E United's still in the tournament, everybody's rooting for Clayster. You know, and so easy to love that team. I miss a team like that. Like I want us to have a team like that in the league. I think the Minnesota ROKKR have had the most potential over the last couple of years, but they just need to win a little bit more. I mean, just to be honest, you know, like there just needs to be a little more wins or consistency, I'll say. You know, finishing the year the way they did, bang. Like there's no better way to do it. You know, like they were in the last 4 teams left in the tournament, and they were one of only 3 teams to win a tournament, and those 4 teams were the only ones to make a grand finals except for New York. And so I think like there's a lot more going on that we don't know about in terms of like you look at Revan leaving New York, like that was intentional. He's probably mad that the org made him play Clayster in champs or something like that. Probably wanted to go out with the guys that had stuck around, but the org was probably like, this is Clayster, you got to play him, you know. And so maybe Revan's like, all right, I'm gonna go somewhere else. Revan's a good coach. Like we can't sleep on Revan. Like, you know, he's a good coach. He's going to go somewhere. He's going to be coaching some team for sure. I don't know about all the other retired pros and things like that. My worry about, like, I get your point, IKON, about, like, Crim, and really he doesn't have anywhere to go, but it's Crim. And we have seen before, we've seen crazier things happen. And wherever Crimsix goes, the changes that happen to fill his roster are going to make other changes. You know, it's kind of like if Scump left OpTic, we would just be waiting for him to land somewhere because do you want to come play with me? Do you want to come play with me? Do you want to come play with me? I still think, that Crim is still a good enough player to get other people to come play with him, but also because of that fundamental stuff you guys were talking about earlier and the way he just knows how to play COD. They played more matches than almost any team, or maps, I'll say, than almost any team because they went to Game 5 so freaking much. But they had Coach Rambo, S&D wins championships. Those guys, they had the Game 5 ice a lot. And when they lost, it was mostly Game 5s, and so I think he still has those fundamental, he's learned since he's gotten older, that I don't got to yell at everybody. If I have a good coach, maybe Rambo would be with Crim, who knows? So I think there's so much speculation, but I do think that Crim is still a top 3 to 5 most valuable pieces in the league right now. And for him to be free, it's going to change a lot wherever he goes. That's just my thought process. Even though I like what you did, he's going to snag some of those people that were like, oh, I'm going to go play for LA Thieves. Well, you want to come play with me at Cloud9? I'm Crimsix. It's like, all right, fine. Who else you got? And so I love Rostermania. Love it.
I do too. So much speculation. It's just like, we could do this podcast for 24 hours straight. And I wish we could, because we would literally not run out of stuff to talk about. The possibilities are endless. I think I do. I mean, I do see, IKON, your point of, if there is a new org that's coming in, what better player to try to build around than Crimsix? But I do also agree that, if you're looking and you see Envoy's over here, and then, I was going to say Hook, but that's not happening. And, so-and-so's over on LA Thieves, and you're like, okay, I think there would be a much more seismic shift towards Crimsix if he was at the helm of a new organization that was joining the CDL. He would be, the force that is drawing people to that team. He wouldn't just make a new team and then kind of end up with the scraps, as it were. So it'll be, I'm interested to see how it's going to play out. I don't know anything about Rostermania or what's actually happening. I do appreciate the love in the chat tonight. People saying they want, the ROKKR guys to stick. People saying they want, this change for ROKKR, that change for ROKKR. I appreciate you guys commenting, watching. Our Rostermania episodes are by far the most viewed podcasts that we do. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're still watching, make sure to leave a like button, or if you're watching after the fact, really appreciate if you guys drop a like on the podcast. It helps us grow this thing, baby. Also, big shout outs to Shannon. If you look at the thumbnail for the video, I literally, there was guttural laughter coming from me today because we look so dramatic. It's so YouTube, bro. It's so funny, the thumbnail for this week. We're like, here, yo, let's help Shannon out. Let's do a crazy pose for next week's thumbnail. You guys ready? All right, you got to do the cringe YouTuber surprise. We're doing it live. This is behind the curtain, chat. You guys can see. All right, look super surprised. 3, 2, 1. Hey, we got you, Shannon. Let's go. Oh man. Anyway, dude, Rostermania is. Well, depending how it goes, it's my favorite or least favorite time. I do get obviously emotionally attached to any, no pun intended, to any of the ROKKR players that we do have. As you guys know, we did do a squad wipe last season, at the end of last season, not this season. Or did we? I don't know.
I hope not.
I'm excited to just kind of see everything unfold. It is a scary time if you are a part of a franchise, because there's so many seismic shifts that can happen right within this, and it's always crazy to watch the dominoes fall. So with that being said, though, we will see you guys next week. Maybe we'll have to, I feel like there was some pretty groundbreaking news and we weren't really able to pop on for an emergency episode, but if there's something crazy, and if I ping the chat and I'm like, yo guys, should we do a podcast? And if we're down, we'll go live. If not, we will see you guys next Tuesday, the 7th at 7:30 Central Time. I do think, I guess a notable date to look out for, the 5th, I believe, of September is when teams can start to announce signings, I believe, officially.
Yep.
Like there's some, obviously unconfirmed or heavily rumored things that are going on, but we'll see what actually gets announced. And that will have happened by the time our next scheduled podcast is. So lots to talk about during Rostermania. Super stoked. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for watching.